Hello, everybody, and welcome to Creative Cafe's Tech Talk Thursday. Another week has gone by so quickly, can't believe it, but here we are. So our guest today is an award-winning podcast producer with over 10 million downloads, and we're delighted to have Bob Cartwright on the show, and he'll be with us in a few minutes to talk about his podcast, The Outdoor Station, and basically all the stuff that he has in his studio that we've just been looking at behind the scenes. So there's some interesting tech that he's got available. So looking forward to talking with Bob in a moment. But first off, Mr. McKenna, welcome back. And apparently it's going to be very, very hot in the UK in the next couple of days. So I've just been told. Is that right?
Yeah, it really is going to be sunny Edinburgh. But we're talking maybe 25 degrees-ish top end. We'll be having a barbecue on Saturday. I'm determined to have it. So we're hoping the wind stays down a little bit as well. But I think it's going to be warmer on the west of the country. So on the west of the country, but we're in the east of the country.
Okay.
So we'll see what that brings. You know, that's
wonderful.
We will wait and see. But for once, it is sunny Edinburgh, but it's not Portugal sunny. It's not 35 degrees.
No, absolutely not. It's not. So if Bob is ready, if you can just give us a wave. Are you ready to join us? He's ready. Okay, let's bring Mr. Cartwright onto the show. Bob, welcome. You mentioned there was no audio for a second there. Can you hear us okay now?
I can hear you okay, but I can't hear Martin, unless Martin split onto a different field.
Oh, that is a bit weird.
But anyway.
It shouldn't be.
Martin is here. I can hear him perfectly well, and we're all coming through Zoom, but that's interesting because I can hear Martin fine.
Yeah,
okay, well, I've just got him in one earpiece, so he might be appearing in my other earpiece, which I haven't plugged in.
Oh, it might be stereo. Oh dear. Okay, let me just see if I can change that real quick. Right, 1 second. I've never seen that problem before. Let's see if I can fix that straight away. Audio settings. Yeah, I wonder why you couldn't hear before. Let me just...
Well, I just keep talking here for a while whilst Neil presses the buttons, because otherwise we won't be able to tell whether Bob can hear me or not at any particular point.
So Martin's talking right now. Can you hear? Can
you now hear me, Bob?
No, still not getting any Martin. Maybe I need to get my other earpiece.
Okay, yeah, just get your other earpiece.
Offline for a second.
No problem. Okay, so whilst Bob gets his other earpiece, I've never had that problem before, because I'm just looking and we are not coming through in stereo on Zoom. So everything looks fine.
I don't do stereo.
So I wondered why you were talking before and Bob was... I thought Bob was ignoring you, but it was just the case that he couldn't hear you. But there you go.
Select a microphone. No.
All right. So
this is virtual mic. So no, the microphone should be fine.
No, I mean I can hear you, and it's via Zoom. So Bob is back now. Can you hear Martin? If Martin speaks,
can you hear me now, Bob?
No. I hear myself, but not Martin.
That's bizarre. Okay, and you can hear me fine, obviously. So, but we're all coming through the same thing.
Let me try something, and let me just try.
It just goes to show it's live, doesn't it?
It is live. Right, Martin's going to try a few things, and then we'll crack on. Yeah. I'll just and we'll just crack on and go to the chat. So I see Saeed's joined us. Hi, Saeed. Thanks for joining us. Just to let us know in the chat if you can actually hear Martin or not, because typically we don't have this problem, but I'm not sure. And I guess you're bringing everything in via Zoom as well, right, Bob? So in theory, you should just be hearing everything that's coming out of Zoom Mix, which is
absolutely.
Okay. Well, let me just check one last thing that I can switch over, and I think might be because it's mixed in stereo on my side, but it's coming through. Let me just double check and do a few things, and I'll just keep talking, and it's live. We just love it. All right. Let me fix this if I can change this audio.
As they say when you go live, there's only 3 rules: test, and.
Exactly. All right. So I don't think I can change that actually on the fly. Let me just look at Zoom. I mean, the audio seems to be fine on this side. There's no other mixing on your side, Bob?
No, none at all. None at all.
No,
well, I am.
Let me try one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thing. Right.
Okay.
Whilst we're waiting, I've never had a problem where guests can't hear other guests, but that's weird.
So I'm just looking. I don't even have any ability to change
No.
microphone from my. So it's the Zoom virtual mic from my end, and that's coming from my Scarlett Solo USB.
Right.
So if there is anybody out there,
Everybody can hear
Still
you.
no Martin.
I would say
Still no
everyone
Martin.
can hear me.
Well, I'm a bit confused now. Let
Still
me
no
just.
me.
Still no Martin. Everybody else. The ironic thing is, everybody else can hear Martin on the show, but it's just you can't hear Martin for some reason. So Daryl's just joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. And well, we are talking audio and podcast today. The irony to do with
Yes.
Martin. It's going to be a very quiet show for you then. I guess I'll have to ask all the questions and stuff. Or you can just feed me questions, Martin, and then I'll just relay them over to Bob. That's all we can do, right? It's like an outside broadcast. That's very bizarre, but everybody else can hear. So I guess we'll just crack on. So anyway, Bob, thank you so much for joining us. After all, help. Question one then. All right. So Bob, for those people who haven't met you before, with all your knowledge in audio and podcasting, can you give us a little bit of a rundown of who you are and what is your podcast all about?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me on the show, or half the show anyway. Martin can sit in the wings in the green room, but thanks for letting me join you. The basis is what I've been doing for the last 20 years is running the Outdoors Station, which is a podcast production website, if you like, which primarily has been based on producing podcasts, audio podcasts and video as well, but predominantly audio podcasts aimed at the backpacker, the self-powered traveler. So people that walk, cycle, run, paddle, and so on to travel around. And it all started, as I say, 20 years ago when I realized that people were keen to hear that sort of story and that sort of information, but there was nobody else producing it at the time. So it is the longest running outdoors based series of podcasts. But these days I'm also producing live streams and other things as well. And I've started a consultancy, if you like, service, a bit like yourselves, which is sort of 3 counties live, which is aimed at producing live streams and podcasts for clients. But my passion is definitely audio and definitely the outdoors. So that's where I started, and I've been going a bit of a while, to say the least.
Definitely a bit of a while, yes. So you said 20 years now. That's a lot of podcasts. So you accomplished over 10 million downloads, which is no mean feat. That's amazing. Congratulations to that. So how many podcast episodes do you have currently then in your bag?
I have 593. The latest one was released this morning, which was an interview I did with some Danish bike packers, as they call themselves, and they cycled from the North Cape in Norway to the South Cape in Africa.
Wow.
And it took them 500 days. So that was a long story and very, very hard to condense that down. But that's the type of people that we've been speaking to over the years. But we do all sorts of things, sort of interviews with people that actually do an adventure, authors of books, anything associated with the outdoors where it might be entertaining for people to listen to, really. So sometimes you talk about gear, sometimes you talk about adventures, sometimes you talk about some of the sort of legality of things that are going on, like that was happening down in Dartmoor. So it's a real mix, but hopefully it's a bit of the reason I called it the station is I tried to do a variety of content to keep people entertained.
And do you typically have guests coming in? Do you do remote, have remote guests like we're doing right now? Or do you go out in the field and interview people? Sort of just tell me your typical things that you tend to do when it's producing those podcasts.
Yeah, it's a real mix. So I do exactly as you say. I have online guests like this, and we talk face to face, as it were. In the past it was purely via Skype, which worked remarkably well actually for audio. And sometimes I do wonder whether having the video actually is a negative rather than a positive, because sometimes you can focus more on what people are saying when you're listening to them as opposed to watching them. And I've just walked across the UK on the Wainwright the Wainwright coast to coast path, which was 192 miles. So I did that the last couple of weeks with my wife. So that's a sort of going to be a 4-part, 5-part podcast series. And I spoke to people as I went. So some people that ran campsites or cafes or other backpackers and that sort of thing, to make it a bit of an interesting program. And they are very, very popular. And then finally, I suppose I go to events as well. So I've been to the outdoor show up at the NEC, and that's where I did a live stream from. So I went and visited various stands. And then I also go to some of the trade shows as well and speak to the brands about what's coming next and that kind of thing. So a bit of a mixed bag, as I say, just to keep it mixed and interesting, really.
So what resonated, do you think, with the audience when you started this outdoor podcast? Because I know it was maybe quite unique back in the day, and obviously it resonated with a lot of people considering the amount of downloads it had. So what do you think sort of set it apart from other sort of podcasts that were out there? Was there any competition at the time? Was there other people doing similar things to you, or were you sort of one of the pioneers of outdoor podcasts?
I was one of the pioneers, really. Certainly one of the first, if not the first in the UK, where podcasting was officially invented, the word, as they say on the Guardian newspaper, in 2005, July 2005. And I started in releasing this material in October 2005. And what had happened, the podcast, the station, whatever you want to call it, really, the podcast started because my wife and I had started a business importing specialist lightweight equipment, camping outdoor equipment from America and Asia. At that time, 20 years ago, people weren't comfortable to order items from abroad. So we started this sort of specialist online retail shop. And as part and parcel of this, we used to get the reps coming around, obviously, with their wares and saying what we were needed and what was the latest item, etc., etc. And in conversation with them, they often spoke of how frustrated they were that they couldn't actually get the message out and educate the Saturday staff, because they were the ones having the most people attending the shops, as it were, but they didn't have the information and could never get to speak to them. So I sort of started initially just talking to them about products, what's changing, what's coming, and that sort of thing. And that slowly expanded into talking with people that were doing various adventures and various hikes and cycles and that sort of thing. And the download figures started to show that was what people wanted to hear about, just like they do these days on YouTube. People want to see people doing things like playing in studios and walking on hills and that sort of thing. And we're going back to the old days, but of course, then the CDs were a thing, you see. So I bought myself a CD duplicator, and what I used to do was compile a 10, 20, 50, whatever it was I could fit onto a CD of the podcasts that I'd done, and sent them out with every product that left the building. And that really, really accelerated two things. It accelerated the podcast exposure and the audience, because everybody at that time had a CD player at home, or certainly on a laptop or a computer. And it also exposed the business to a much wider audience as well. So it was a double header, and it worked exceedingly well. And as you quite rightly intimated, at the time there weren't that many people doing what I was doing in that particular niche. There were a few American-based podcasts which were typically about the big walks over there, the Appalachian Trail and the PCT, and sort of sporting ones. But there was nobody really specialising in that niche in the UK. So for a while, I had it to myself, and that was when the figures were really, really something to be, something. I'd love to get those figures again. We're talking sort of 50,000 a month.
Right.
It was incredible. So whatever I was doing, it was going well,
Back in the days, you said, and it's almost like the Netflix for audio, isn't it? Where you're shipping out these audio CDs to go with the gear that you're actually shipping. And I think it's an ingenious idea, because what a great way of getting exposure. Because if nobody's heard of the podcast back in the day, where the internet wasn't as big as it is now, and so on, and the availability of social media and stuff, that was an ingenious way of getting your podcast out there. Chris, who's just joined us from Dealcasters, he says, podcasts on CDs, now we're talking. Absolutely. Yeah, back podcasts and CDs. There you go. So tell me a little bit about where you started in terms of the gear that you used originally, because I was reading sort of in your description some of the things that you were talking about in terms of it used to take you quite a long time to get this podcast edited, put together, and then uploaded in terms of the overall workflow. Maybe you can talk about where you started and sort of the editing software that you used with your original podcast and how that has changed to now. So, what types of things are you using now, and what type of workflow improvements you've added over the years that streamlined that process and made just creating podcasts for you much more easier?
Well, to be honest, not a lot has changed. I'm very much of the philosophy of the KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid, and it's worked. So it depends how far you want to turn the clock back. I mean, if I go back to my school years, I was fascinated by audio then. My father brought home a second-hand old reel-to-reel machine, with the big wheels on it.
I remember.
Oh, it was amazing, so exciting. And you could record and play back. And you think about modern day technology, everything being a touch of a button now and touch screen. This thing had a joystick on it. It was a mechanical joy. In fact, it was like a gear lever of an old car, and it clunked back and forward, clunked to play,
wow,
and then clunked to stop, and rewind. And I got involved in doing the background tech for the school plays and the sort of things that you get involved in at that sort of age. And I distinctly remember there was this dramatic moment going on, and there was the sound of this musical sound effect coming in the background. So there was me, and the auditorium was quiet because it was this penultimate moment, and all you heard was ka-dunk, and it started going. It's just like you just wouldn't believe it now. People just touch the screen and off it goes. So yeah, it started then, and as a result of those sort of experiences, I learned how to splice tape. So editing in those days was a razor blade and some sticky tape and a little metal block, and you'd rock and roll the tape until you got the the start of the word, whatever it was, and you slice it diagonally on the blade. Then you stick some sticky tape on it, and then you put it on the table, stuck in one particular place, and you mark it to say what it was, because it was very, very easy to have 5 bits of tapes stuck to the board and not go, oh, which one where he starts the sentence? I can't remember which one it is. And you end up, then when you stick them all together, you put them back on the reel again, and then it's span, and then it's edited, and you've taken out all the bad notes or the things that weren't needed and that sort of thing. So that was the first stage. And so yes, things definitely moved on, I should say, that over the following millennium, sort of 10, 20 years, thankfully. And then it moved. I mean, I went from recording people on a Nagra, which was a compact reel-to-reel machine that the batteries would last 20 minutes and it weighed a complete ton. Then there was the marvelous thing, which was what, mini discs, I suppose. Oh, and cassettes, but the cassettes wasn't, the audio fidelity of the cassette wasn't very good. Then you had mini discs, which are actually quite good for what they were. And I recorded my first few podcasts on a mini disc when I was mobile, because it was a small little unit, ran off a couple of 1.5 volt batteries. I could plug a decent microphone into it, away I went. And then it moved on to digital audio tape, DAT tapes. I've still got a DAT machine over there, which were phenomenal, because what you got in, it was exactly what you got out, and you could copy it back and forward, and there was never any degradation. And then all of a sudden things went digital, and then there was a whole new world. So when it came to editing, I suppose up until the sort of the point where it went digital with DAT tapes, it was a physical thing. You would be copying one chunk of audio across to another machine, and then pausing it to take out the bad bit, and then you'd let release and let go and get recording again, and so on. And then we moved into the digital world, and I think that's when I first probably bought one of the early Mac 2s, and with its 500 meg or a whole gigabyte or something. And it was just a simple 2-track editor, Sound Designer, I think it was called in those days. And that would enable you to chop bits out, silence something, and move things. And that was about it. And then that moved on, obviously, as computers got more powerful. Then various multi-track systems came out. Logic Audio is the one I'm still using.
Right.
and the recording was still using the same microphones that I've been using 10 years prior.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that lots of comments as well coming in. So I'll just go back a little bit. So Daryl was saying that just people can't imagine what you had to do back then. I'm probably of a similar age or similar sort of how I started as well with audio. I had an old reel-to-reel tape recorder. I think it was a Grundig one. It didn't have the clunk. So, it wasn't like that, but it had the piano key controls, the old cassette, the big chunky play button, pause, but the big red record button and things like that. And I was fascinated by it because I just loved audio. I always loved recording. I used to record my family with this makeshift crappy microphone. I actually made a microphone out of an old pair of headphones, and it was an electrical cable. I had like this 30-foot electrical cable, not shielded at all, lots of buzzing. But I used to sort of walk around and try and interview people, and I was fascinated with audio. And that's, I guess, where my sort of passion of audio and then going into music production and things that I do as a pastime started as well. But if you go back and watch some documentaries on YouTube around how the likes of Genesis and bands like that used to edit and splice the tape, it was exactly that. They're on the big 1-inch tape, and if they make a mistake or they want to cut a piece out, you're having to splice that tape. And the engineers back then were just phenomenal, how they just got it right on the beat. You couldn't tell at all that they made these splices in these master tapes, and it was just so amazing. And now, just a click of a button, copy paste, you can do whatever you want in digital form, and it's like kids today, they don't know how lucky they are. But the usual thing, as we say. But it's true, right?
Yeah.
And I think
absolutely.
No, go ahead.
No, it's. I saw a documentary on Queen's. What's their big famous piece?
Bohemian Rhapsody, you mean?
Oh, but thank you very much. That's the one I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. Bohemian Rhapsody, and how it was physically spliced, all those different sections,
right,
physically spliced and put together. I mean, can you imagine the pressure of being a couple millimeters out on that particular splice? I mean, it doesn't bear thinking about, does it really?
No, and so it's it's phenomenal back in the day. So and just for people who are have tuned in a little bit late, the reason Martin hasn't got a problem or anything today, it's just that the fact that Bob can't hear Martin, so he's silenced. I can hear him, Bob can't. So Martin could say whatever he wanted about Bob, and Bob would never hear him, only on the replay. So let's not do that. But but anyway, so Syed has clearly mentioned that Martin is in video-only podcast mode, i.e. no audio. So that's the way this show is going today. Anyway, so I'd like to talk a little bit about your workflow today, and in particular this amazing studio that you gave us a little bit of a glimpse at the beginning. So you have a purpose-built studio at home, and I'm obviously not going to give any secrets away, but if you'd like to maybe show the audience a little bit around the studio and talk a little bit about how you've constructed this and what was your thinking process behind the whole studio build, because I'm always fascinated to see other people's studio spaces, and I know the people that watch this show are as well, and everybody's always wanting to tweak and do a few bits and pieces and changes and things. So talk to me about what your studio is like today, and how did you arrive at building it in this configuration, and how is that helping and using when you do your podcast recordings and other various YouTube recordings and stuff?
Sure. Well, glad to. I mean, I'm as equally geeky as everybody else when it comes to looking at people's studios, because I think you can always pick up tips from other people, what they're doing. So obviously, as people can see here, it's very similar to yourself. There's a reasonable distance between me and the background, and it all looks like I've got a brick wall there and a few clever lights and a little video running continually. But it's all on wheels. It's all movable. Let's just have a look. So that's the rear view behind where I'm sitting at the moment, and you can see I've got the legs out today, as you do when it's a warm day. Let's see if I can get no, it's not working. So let's go back to that. So yeah, let's just talk about this then. What my pleasure was in building this and having to know I was going to have my own space was the fact that from my experience over the years of doing videos and doing audio, there's nothing worse than tripods. They get everywhere, and you're forever either tripping over the tripod or tripping over the cable. And when something goes over, it gets quite expensive, doesn't it? So what I planned to do right from the very beginning here was suspend the metal units, metal rods from the ceiling. So I reinforced the ceiling when I built it so that I could actually hang most items and all the lights off the ceiling, and it's all got its own power up there as well, which makes life an awful lot easier. And also I can run the cables around when I want to then drop cables down for the cameras. And then the other thing, which I think was a bonus, was again, just at the beginning of COVID, people were obviously changing what they were doing, and many people were selling off their equipment. And I bought a handful of auto poles, which is probably the best thing I've ever done. And it was a ridiculously cheap price. I was very fortunate. In fact, most of the items in here, thinking about it, are secondhand. They've all come from Marketplace or eBay. And so with auto poles, what that allows you to do, can you see one here? I've got one on this unit here.
Oh,
so
like a very pole.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an expandable pole, so it clamps to the ceiling, clamps to the floor, and it just expands enough to grip tightly. And it enables me, in this particular case, obviously to stick my reference monitor up there, the camera's here behind, in front of me, obviously, with the monitor there, so I can see what's going on the multi-view. And as you can see, cable-wise, there's virtually nothing on the floor at all. So that makes life a lot easier. If I can get the
tiny working. There's a quick question come in as well while you're getting your tiny camera working. Said was asking, is that a monitor arm on a pole mounted on the left of the desk? So I think he's talking about the one that's near your Mac. There's an arm right here. No, you can see that I'm pointing to it on the screen.
I'm trying to see you. No, you're here, yeah?
Yeah, so it's basically, this thing here, this pole here, basically.
This one here?
The one on the left. If you move to the left.
Is that
so you have a Mac?
As you're looking at?
I'm looking at you, so you're left.
Yes. I've got a Mac Book Pro here and a PC.
So to the left of the Mac, you've got a pole that's on the edge of the desk. So is it a desk mount or is it a pole?
The only one that's, in fact, if I can get, let's get this is that working? Right. No, that's not the one, is it? Let's just get it going. No, it's not that one. Sorry. So I've got the monitor on pole here.
Mm-hmm.
Directly facing me, and I've got a mini monitor with the mirror system here in front of me, the auto cue.
Right.
Might be looking in the background. There's monitors on equipment in the background. Which is
it's just something that's clamped to your desk. It just looks like it's clamped to your desk on.
Oh, this. Sorry,
no. There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand. Yeah. These are glow pads. They're glow pads.
Ah. Okay.
So these are. Let's go back to the front camera.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
These are great. So these are Pixar glow pads. And again, I picked them up on eBay for peanuts. I was so pleased with these because wearing glasses, as you probably know, is an absolute nightmare to try and get the lighting right. And if you have it too far in front of you, it's all over the place. But these come out, the light is very, very soft and it comes out sideways.
Oh,
so
right.
I can just give you an idea of the adjustment. So I've got complete control over the lighting, so whether I want to have it one side or the other.
Right.
And I can then adjust it to suit the exposure to balance the background.
Fantastic. And what's the name of them again?
These are Pixar Pro glow pads.
Glow pads. Okay.
And and I've got another pair on the other camera over there as well, which they've worked beautifully. But again, I'm not too sure whether they're a current model, but I picked them up on eBay and somebody was clearing their studios out, and they've been absolutely fantastic. Really, really, really pleased with them.
So your space that you have at the moment, if we can talk a little bit more about how it's functional. So you have almost like a multi-purpose suite within your studio right now. So you do various things. You've got like a place where you do editing and you talk to camera right now. So this is your main sort of look when you're doing your videos. And in terms of podcast editing, there was another part of the studio you showed us in a photograph whereby when you've moved everything around, it's almost like a different sort of room altogether. So is that used for another particular purpose, or is it just moved around to suit and give you a different sort of look and feel when you're actually doing your videos?
It's a multi-choice question. The answer is yes. Let me pop
all of the above, right? All of the above. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the other part where I've got my main streaming machine here. So this has got all the cameras coming into it. So this is the main machine is beneath my knees now. That is just a Canon camcorder, X10 I think it is.
Oh, right.
Which I bought 3 of those, and they've been absolutely fantastic. So they're really, really easy to run, and I prefer, in many respects, I prefer camcorders over DSLRs because they're designed to do a particular job and they do it very, very well. Whereas DSLRs can get a bit complicated and it can start to get expensive with different lenses, but you always need a different lens to the one that's on the camera. So over to my side here, I've got my mixing desk, which is takes the audio and obviously puts it USB into the system. And then over on the other side of the room, let's have a look here. So I've got a micro camera, little Sony sports camera at the moment, and that is showing you obviously some of the equipment I've got here. So when I'm doing a table presentation, I can just go very, very closely into any particular item that I'm talking about. And then if I want to do the overhead, I should be able to do the overhead again with another Canon camera, which does the job nicely. So these are the sort of microphones that I still use quite happily. That's a particular good one, actually, the AKG C1000, because although it's phantom powered, you can actually just plug a 9-volt battery into it. And so taking that and plugging it into even the mini disc was just superb results. And like most things, it is the quality of the microphone that makes the difference rather than the quality of the recorders, because these days they all do the same thing. They all record, high quality WAVs. I mean, most of the time I tend to use this little one, which is a little, let's just show it in action. There you go. Little Tascam DR5.
Right, yeah.
And that slips into my pocket and my rain jacket when I'm hiking, and I can take it out and start talking to people straight away. And there's no elaborate setup or anything. And if it drops it or I break it, whatever, it doesn't cost very much money. So far so good on that score. I wish I could get the Ozbot working. It was working a minute ago.
It was working a minute ago, yeah. You can go and have a play with it if you want. I'll just switch to myself and Martin because I can hear Martin. Hello. Oh, you've put yourself on mute because,
Put myself on mute briefly because Bob can't hear me. So,
do you have any questions for Bob that I can relay to him once he's got his Ozbot working?
I'm seeing all of these furry microphones and wondering what he does for outside broadcasts and how that varies uniquely from doing the type of streaming we do. And in particular, I think Bob has got a bit of a secret about how he gets his outside broadcasts inside effectively.
We'll talk about that. Absolutely. All right. Absolutely.
I'll have to go off the screen again because Bob will think I'm talking about him.
Exactly. So we'll go back and we'll just wait for Bob to come back. We'll just wait. We're looking at the microphone collection at the moment. To the people in the chat as well, if you do have a question about all this technology that Bob is showing us at the moment, there's some other stuff coming up in a minute that Martin has alluded to. There's the back of the studio room as well. I'll put Bob on full screen and then we can see it in all its glory. So this, Bob, is your studio when there's nobody in it, obviously, and this is at its tidiest, I can see.
Yes,
Bobby?
absolutely.
You're good.
Yeah. Just trying to get the old technology working. Is it following me? No, follow me, Ozbot. Do your thing. Flash and do all that sort of sexy stuff. No, you're not going to do it. Okay. So let's just whip that round a bit then. So there's my rear camera, and if I just tilt that down, the
Hmm.
wall there it's all on wheels.
Right.
So
So
I've just
everything
built a
is
wooden frame.
okay. So another variable. Right.
Yeah, and then these clips at the top here just hook this on, and the whole wall just drops down like
Oh
that.
wow. So you can have like different looks, anything that you want, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So if I have a client, for example, and the client has graphics that they want to have in their background, and it's just get it printed out on a piece of normal inkjet printed but posters, and we
Hmm.
can just clip it to the wall. Then let's just move it round. Over there, you can see we have assorted artificial plants.
Of course.
And as I say, the boarding there is just hooked onto the wall and then just slides and slots together. And these lovely LED strips that you can get these days just literally push straight into the wall there, and you just jammed in by gravity. Um, the monitor is running a looped video, and
Right.
that looped video is coming off that little box in the corner down there, which is a video tell. And all that does, it's one of those promotional video players that you have in
Right.
shops that as soon as you switch it on, it's designed just to run the video.
Right. I'm
So
with
it's a
you.
cheap way of just creating a video.
Interesting.
What else? So swivel that round. There you go. There's the other area there.
So
So
what's this
let's see.
particularly used for then? Is this your editing suite come audio workflow, or this particular one that we're looking at right
Um,
now?
that is obviously the camera unit.
Hmm.
That's the other presentation area over there. Yeah, that is where I just sit and edit the audio and chop it up and then send it out. And that can the actual stand, which is, can you see that? Yeah, I think you can see that.
Hmm.
The actual stand at the back, this black thing, this thing up here, that is an old photographic studio camera stand. It's really, really heavy, and so it's got lead weights in the bottom of it to keep it
Oh,
stable
right.
for obvious reasons for photographic. But what I did was I had some brackets made to go on the back of it, which would then fit. Oh, it's working now. Great. Which then fitted the ISA mounts, or VESA mounts rather, for the back of monitors. So I
Right.
then just basically built these clamps, and everything clamps to that. So the cameras, the monitors, the VU meters, everything is just bolted to that unit. So if I want to move it around and change the configuration sometimes, the whole lot moves on wheels, which makes life an awful lot easier.
So you can
So
basically
yeah,
reconfigure this however you want to an extent, right?
yeah,
Because of
yeah,
the fact that it's
yeah.
very cool.
Hello, come back. There we go. Um, the idea is then that if I'm interviewing people that are physically in the room, which I've done on various videos, then we can lay the seating out with 2 or 3 seats here, and it all works accordingly. And I can change the background to suit them. I can change the graphics to suit them. And because the lighting is all clamped to the ceiling rails, and these ceiling rails aren't expensive. They're from a company called, well, I have to think about it, Metal something or other. They are used primarily by trendy shops, trendy clothing shops.
Right.
You might
Yeah.
see these metal rails.
Yeah.
So it was fairly inexpensive. But basically the philosophy is been thinking about this for many years, and obviously once it's in your head what you're going to do when it actually comes to buying something, you're fairly straight. Think, okay, I just need this, this, and this, and all the toys, as we all love, all the toys were all basically picked up off eBay or Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace.
Fantastic. A couple of questions coming in. So first question is, are there any windows in your studio, or are they all blacked out, or are you covering them up with something?
The end of the room, there you can see the red
Yeah.
ahead of me. That's a big double window, and over to that side there are double glazed doors that go into the next room, And
Oh,
I've also
right.
got some windows around the corner as well. So yes, they're blacked out, or blacked out with blinds anyway.
Excellent. Before we talk about your outdoor broadcast setup, which is fascinating because obviously you've mentioned about doing live events, actually in-person live events from shows and show floors. How are you connecting all this together then? So you mentioned that you're using vMix. Now, are we using a mixture of capture cards, NDI, SDI? Can you tell me a little bit about how you've got all the cameras in your studio currently connected and what are you using from a technology perspective?
Sure. So this camera and the one behind me is are Sony 6000s. So they're APC cameras. It's going into a Zowie box, which people may or may not have heard of, but they're very high quality and inexpensive NDI converters, and they do an amazing range of things, including stream and all sorts of stuff. But the way I've got it configured at the moment is so I'm getting HDMI into the box, HDMI through the box to the monitor that's above the camera here, and it's converting it into NDI HX3, and that is going into the PC with vMix, so that's picking up the NDI. The other cameras that I've shown you, the overhead camera, the close-up camera, and the camera on the other the desk over there, they are straightforward HDMI in. I've got a 4-channel HDMI input. And so what I've tried to do over a period of time is basically convert most things to NDI. Those Zowie boxes are just phenomenal. They will do a whole variety of things, which I won't go into, but it's well worth online to see what they will do, because they have changed or made it much easier for me to have a number of cameras and just running off PoE, off Ethernet. And so the camera just is self-contained, it powers itself, and then the actual unit itself is just one simple Ethernet cable, as opposed to an expensive HDMI cable. And you know what it's like trying to get HDMI cables to work sometimes. Sometimes the distance and the quality of the cable, etc., is a problem.
Definitely. I mean, and then there's power to the camera as well, right? So there's all these kinds of things that you have to sort of deal with. But it's interesting that you're using a mixture of HDMI capture and NDI within the studio, because I thought, maybe what I have is a similar setup without the NDI piece, unless I'm using the Albspot cameras. I've got the Tail 2 and a couple of others that I've been playing with. So they're normally connected via, NDI power over Ethernet. And then I've got a 4-port HDMI capture card, which is in a separate box because I'm on a Mac system, so it goes into a Thunderbolt port, and that's the Decklink Quad. But there are others out there. There's better ones, there's cheaper ones, and there's also many more expensive ones. But it does get a bit expensive when you're starting to look at having more than one camera in your setup, because I used to play with cam links a lot, and therefore we're forever breaking, and you can only have really 2 or 3 connected to your Mac before things start to break. But obviously, being a PC user and using vMix, your vMix controller you mentioned, is that a dedicated tablet, or is that just a repurposed tablet that you're using to control and doing all the switching of your cameras right now?
No, it's just a standard cheap 7-inch Android Lenovo tablet.
Right.
I've got some old Samsung ones over here which do the job just as well. I've got the same capture card as yourself. And the main reason I sort of went down the vMix route was I'd started with the first machine I bought was a TriCaster, which is an expensive way to get into streaming. And I wasn't very happy with the company generally, but I was quite happy with the results I was getting. And I don't tend to buy the latest tech. I tend to buy the oldest tech I could afford. And as you know, with Macs, it's forever changing and it gets more and more expensive. And I couldn't really afford a Mac that would be powerful enough to do the things that I wanted it to do.
Sure.
And at the time, the software that was available for Ecamm wasn't available for it. It was I can't remember the name of the other software, and it was just so it just stuttered and it was just labor intensive. And the thing is, with the PC, at least you can still upgrade things to suit your needs.
Yes.
Whereas with Macs, as we know now with the silicons, once you buy the box, you've bought the box. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only unfortunate thing. So you got to like sort of go big or go home with a Mac and try and future-proof it.
Yeah.
But I do say that they're pretty efficient though, and I've never had. I mean, I'm using an older M1 Mac Studio right now, and it's touch wood, it's perfectly fine for doing what I want to do. And I do quite a bit of heavy lifting with the Final Cut Pro and stuff. Go ahead, sorry.
So the M1 is my latest machine.
Oh, right, okay.
Second-hand M1.
There you go. So you're a little bit. Well, that's fine. But I'm not going to buy an M3 or an M4 until something dictates that I need to. Music software is a pain because they're always upgrading, and it's like, well, you need something else and stuff. Anyway, so we've mentioned it. I'd like to talk a little bit about how you do your outside broadcasts. So talk to us a little bit about what gear that you use for that, and really how does all that fit into the mix, as it were, when you're actually doing your outside broadcast.
Okay. Sure. Well, very much like you and Martin, I have teamed up with Jess Gilgrass, who's a good friend, will become a good friend of mine, but he has doing something very similar with his interest, his business, original content. And we found we were both of a very similar mindset as regards frustrated that live streaming wasn't being used as much as we think it should be. And I think, we've been watching your content for a while, and I know that we're talking the same language. So the way that it works is that I use a live view solo, it just so happen I have here. Let's see, you can see that clearly. Let's put that in front of my face. So this is the basic bonding transmitter that LiveView produce. This is now the model. They don't make this anymore. It's obviously gone into a new model like everything else. And in principle, what this does it will take two dongles here, two USB G4, 4G dongles, and then we'll also incorporate two other Ethernet signals as well, so a Wi-Fi signal and a hardwired Ethernet. So I tend to have 4 dongles running with this. And this allows me to SRT a signal from the unit, HDMI signal, straight to a vMix machine. And I'm sure it'll do to an Ecamm machine as well. And the way that it works with Jess is I generally prepare the show. There's a couple of examples on the website of the National Outdoor Show at the NEC, and a couple of the running show at the NEC, and a Chamber of Commerce show as well. And there is usually myself and a camera guy with a straightforward HD camera. Sometimes we use Sony, sometimes we use Canons, nothing either way. Sometimes we use the APC, the Sony 6000, and it gives a nice clear image. That's the output of that is plugged directly into the LiveView. The LiveView SRTs it to Jess in his studio, which is similar to mine, a bit smaller, but similar to mine, into Jess's place. And he will overlay all the graphics, all the videos, all the things that I've prepared for the show. And so he then outputs it directly to YouTube or wherever it's going on the minimal delay setting. And it's incredible how quick it is. It's less than 30 seconds. So I can be having a conversation like you are now with a guest live at a show, and he can be telling me questions that are coming in. And the way I'm getting feedback is I use a little earpiece here, which is the same one I'm using now. That is running through my phone, and my phone is just literally talking to that. So he is giving me instructions and telling me, all right, you're live, and we're coming into an ad break, or we're coming into running the video, or you're back live again now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, etc. And so it's exactly the same as TV broadcast, except that this is the bottom end of the equipment list, really. The TV broadcast list is more expensive than this. It's a bigger box. It has more dongles attached to it for a better signal, and I think the broadcast ones also do the feedback, talkback through the actual box itself, whereas we have to use a separate system. But our frustration is there are so many people that are running shows these days which are fantastic, but of course not everybody can get to the show. And we feel that there's an opportunity to give people an additional online audience, streamed audience, either through a public network like YouTube or a private network, where they can increase their revenue from that audience. And in turn, from a percentage point of view, we earn from the ticket sales. So if we sell 10 tickets, okay, that's a loss. But if we sell 200, then we balanced out, So that's the practicalities of how it works. Has that explained it okay for you?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you that I've been in live events whereby people have tried to use, and it's not the same technology, but they try to use wireless microphones in a live event, right? And you know what it's like. They're running on the TV quality. But look at that. There. Thanks, Martin. That's a good summary there. And he's drawn that out already for us. We can show you that on the replay later, Bob. But what's interesting is that they start to use the same 2.4 gigahertz technology for the wireless microphones, and then all hell breaks loose. It's just a mess. So from an audio perspective and video, obviously you're not bound by using any of the in-house Wi-Fi there. You're using basically multiple 4G bonded connections. And what's sort of your upload speed like then using the LiveView box? What's the sort of throughput rates that you're getting on average?
It's actually pretty good. I mean, it's compressed to H.265,
right,
and SRT is quite flexible as regards digital errors. It'll compensate. You've just got to give it a time loop for it to allow for the data to come through. But I think probably 6 to 8 megs is enough for a HD signal. And as I say, if people wanted to go and have a look at the website and then look at some of the lives that have been done, they'll see the quality there. It's perfectly good. And of course, that's just my bit to camera. The video loops and the other images and the other things that may be going on as part of the program are all coming directly off Jess's machine.
right.
So it's actually, I mean, I was blown away when I did it for the first time. It was very nerve-wracking, as you'll appreciate the first time you do this thing, because you're relying on lots of pieces of technology to work in hand with each other.
Yes.
But in actual fact, it's gone without a blip. But coming back to your point about the 2.4 gigs video mics, I made the mistake of doing that on one of the presentations. And at the NEC, which is obviously a big tin box generally, and there are a lot of people with mobile phones around, I couldn't get more than 10 feet away from the receiver on the camera to do my pieces. But it was okay. We managed, but we realised the problem fairly quickly.
So Martin has a question, and the question was, so how does Speedify compare to the LiveView box? I know there's slightly different technologies and stuff, but could you maybe explain the difference to people? Because I know a lot of people are using Speedify to help bond their sort of home network and help sort of bridge some of those discrepancies where they don't have enough bandwidth.
Yes, in all honesty, I'm yet to use Speedify. I've got a Magewell Director Mini, and that is a phenomenal piece of kit as regards what it will do on site. And as part of that, it comes with Speedify built in. So I'm yet to go out and test it. But in that particular piece of equipment, you use up the ports very quickly. It will take 2 HDMI inputs, and it will take 2 USB inputs, like OBSBOT or whatever. But of course, if you use a USB dongle, that's one of the ports gone. It has got an Ethernet connection, and it has got Wi-Fi. So I intend to use it with 3 to see how well it works. So in all honesty, I haven't done it as yet, but the people that I've spoken to that have used it on a regular basis said it's working perfectly well. So I think it's the new version of the LiveView for us sort of semi-professional people, really.
Excellent. Let me go back to podcasting. We've got about 6 minutes left before we typically wrap up the show. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the future of podcasting, and in particular, what sort of AI-based workflows and tools are you using right now to maybe streamline your overall production process, and any recommendations of software that you've used that you found to be really good in either enhancing the audio quality of your podcasts or any repurposing tips and tricks that you may have for the audience?
Okay, well, going back to my old roots, my ancient roots, I'm a firm believer of GIGO, as they say, garbage in, garbage out. So if you've recorded rubbish in the first place, you're going to get rubbish out the other end, and it gives you a lot of time. You have to spend a lot of time tidying it up. Now, in my experience, I have been lucky enough to recognize problems before they happen when it comes to recording audio. So that's the reason I managed to get away with quite happily with those small recorders. If you're standing in a drafty corridor, you stand with your back to the wind, so you know that you can block the wind off the microphone. And I tend to direct people I'm talking to and put them in a place that I want to put them into while I talk to them. Usually, there's some people, when you put a microphone in front of them, they start to walk backwards away from you. So I put them against a wall usually to stop them doing that. So that's that. From an AI perspective, I absolutely love audio, and I absolutely love creating the audio and the video side of things. There's no question about it. What I particularly hate with a vengeance is how social media has really dominated the success of the audio. So you can produce the best content that you can possibly can, but unfortunately social media, unless you're very good at that, which I'm not very good at, I have to say, unless you're very good at that, I tend to struggle to do that. So I tend to take the shortest route in when I've created the artwork for the podcasts and odd clips, which I've sort of made a note of as I've been recording, then I will just compile those quickly and use those as my social media, which a lot of people I'm sure will criticize, quite rightly so. But I have started using a website called PodSqueeze, and they've proved to be very useful. Your monthly investment gives you a certain amount of minutes access, and I can put my podcast into there. It'll transcribe the whole thing. It will create clips that it thinks that is appropriate, and I can edit those clips. It'll create clips with the text coming up, and if there's spelling mistakes, I can edit the spelling mistakes. It'll do a lot of the social media changes that make it appropriate for LinkedIn rather than Instagram, and so on and so forth. So that's my only use of AI currently, because I really don't like doing all the social media activity. So I tend to put my efforts into creating as good a content as I can, and then I just quickly put it into PodSqueeze. It gives me enough rewritten information for me to use for introductions or for text to go with the particular podcast or put it with a video, and that's about it. I don't use the audio tidying because I feel that the audio that I'm producing is a good enough quality that people enjoy it, and there's never been any complaints at all. In fact, I've always had compliments about the audio, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that carries on.
Definitely,
get
yeah.
away with it.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Martin's got a couple of questions. First question is,
Sure.
I think I know the answer to this, but can you typically get podcasts now in stereo? Or are they sort of, because back in the day, they always used to be a sort of a mono because it was just voice and stuff, but obviously with introductions of music and other things, are sort of stereo podcasts very popular? Is that a thing, or is that just a matter of course now where everybody just records in stereo anyway?
It's always been a thing. It's always been a stereo podcast. I think the reason people used to do mono outputs was because their bandwidth was so tight and so small that actually as a mono file at low resolution was much easier to transfer from A to B than a stereo file, and they were much smaller, and you would be paying for your hosting in a much greater way than you're doing now. So no, it's always been stereo, Martin. 2 years, we've got them, use them.
Another question from Martin. What has been your most popular podcast episode, and why do you think it was a hit? Putting you on the spot now.
Oh, my word.
You've only got a few to choose from, so we'll give you a few minutes to go through all 600 and odd podcasts.
Yeah, well, oh, blimey. I'm really struggling to answer that one. I should have that one off the top of my head. I think, actually, strangely enough, it was one where I was being interviewed very much like this by somebody that's got quite a big audience, and that seems to be the one that seems to be sitting at the top of my list as being the one where it seems to have the greatest number of downloads. But that's in the last few years. Prior to that, it was probably when I was involved in an event that takes place every year in May, walking across Scotland, called the TGO Challenge. And when I got involved with that initially, that was the first time it was starting to appear on social media. And so I did a number of episodes about walking across Scotland and talking to people as I did, usual sort of format. And they were exceedingly popular because people wanted to hear what other people were doing and what equipment they were using, and they're hearing the rain on the tent and hearing it when you fall into a puddle and into a ditch and all that sort of stuff. People love it.
Perfect. Keeps it real, right? We're coming up to the top of the hour, so I'm going to ask you one last question. The future of podcasting. where do you think we're going to be in 5 years with so many video-based, chat-based podcasts out there now? You see all the popular ones are all bubbling to the top, millions and millions of downloads. With the advent of everything that's going on with AI and stuff, where do you see the future of and let's keep it audio for now, the audio podcast in the future?
I really don't know. I mean, it is changing so rapidly, and there are so many people that are now producing podcasts completely AI. So you can give the podcast software or online software or whatever a series of press releases. It will compile them for you, and it will read them in different voices as a news item or as a content, and it'll even chuck the music in for you as well. So you have a situation where it can be completely AI generated from start to finish, which is quite frightening. It's quite good. It's not very human. Naturally, there's obviously where we tend to fluctuate, just like I'm doing, but it is very, very good for what it's doing. Is it of benefit to anybody? I think that's the discerning part, isn't it? We've all got our niche interests. I'm sure you and I've got very similar interests that perhaps overlap. And I think you sort of find somebody that's delivering to you the information in a way that you enjoy absorbing it. But what I certainly found, as I say, the first 10 years, the listenership was just phenomenal. It was huge. But now with the advent of social media and the advent of new people coming on the scene that are all doing something very similar or overlapping slightly, it's narrowing down the audiences to everybody, because we've only got a certain amount of time each day to listen to the content that we want to listen to. So we tend to cherry pick. But the other side of it is the audience is reducing. Very quickly, I would say my concern is that so many broadcast companies and so many professional companies that have got a lot of brand influence or brand funding behind them are dominating the scene. And I don't know whether the end user is enjoying that as much as small independents like myself that are being a bit more real, as it were, because those packaged ones, as good as they are, can sometimes be a bit sterile. But I haven't got a crystal ball, and I listen to everybody's opinion really, and wondering what the future holds. Who knows? Is my answer. Who knows?
Yeah. Who
really?
knows?
I'm sorry.
No, it's a great answer. And I'm a big believer in keeping it real as well. And I think the authenticity of smaller podcasts in a niche particular area, I think personally outweigh sometimes the 3-hour, 4-hour mass-produced podcast that you see from the big studios. I think only time will tell, and the audience is going to make the decision, right? We're getting fed up with listening to and watching AI-generated content all the time. There are similarities in things. Who knows what's going to be there in 5 years' time? It might be so lifelike that you probably won't be able to tell the difference between, a human video podcast, for example, and an AI-generated one. I think only time will tell. But love what you're doing, and I think it's amazing that you've been in the industry for so long, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And I've just got a CTA for you. So this is basically where you can find Bob's site, and it's theoutdoorstation.co.uk. Go and check out his podcasts and all the awards that he's won on there as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. If you want to hang around in Zoom for a few minutes, have a quick chat to Martin. You will be hearing one side of the conversation, and we'll join you after the show is over for a couple of minutes if you can hang back. But once again, Bob, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, and I hope people have enjoyed the content that we've shared.
Definitely, yeah. I've learned a lot about your studio setup, and you've given me some ideas. I don't want to tweak this studio anymore, but when I see other people's stuff, it's like, maybe I could just need to do that. We shall see. Watch this space. Thank you, Bob. See to you in a few minutes. All right. Well, Martin, it's been the quietest show for you. You could have gone off and made yourself a coffee or something, and so on. I love Saeed's comment.
One of those actors' union things, isn't it? As soon as I speak, you have to pay me. That's why I have to sit in the background quietly. It
was so funny. Yeah, I'm looking forward to your transcript as well today, Martin. So,
and I'm not quite sure what can possibly be happening, because we're all just coming through one channel from us on Zoom.
Don't worry. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Not to worry.
Interesting.
But anyway, it'll be a one-way conversation, but only for today. Hopefully we'll fix whatever tech issues we've had. It's live, and that's what happens, right?
On next week, if you put me on the left and you on the right,
That'll work. That'll work. Yeah. It'll just be in one ear. That's fine. No problem. Anyway,
end of
thanks.
show. We're 5 minutes late.
Exactly. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Bob. Take care of yourselves. See you soon.